To summarize, I try to give you a brief understanding of my research questions in the lab, and they are focused on decoding motor neuron activity from high-density EMG and applications into motor physiology and neuroprosthetics. This is an overview of the motor system, and I put the focus on the spinal cord because I'm highly interested in these neurons here. They are called motor neurons, and these neurons are specific because they are directly connected to the muscle fibers, and they drive our movement. Since so that when we lose these neurons in some disorder or disease, we completely lose our capability of doing some motor tasks using our own body. These neurons receive a lot of signal, a lot of presynaptic signals from brain circuits, spinal cord circuits, local circuits in the spinal cord, and also peripheral afferents or peripheral receptors that drive these neurons with feedback information from our body. These neurons represent a tiny fraction of neurons in the central nervous system. This is less than 0.0005% of the neurons in the brain, in the whole brain. But we have one specific reason to be interested in these neurons, and is because they are easily recorded from non-invasive methods. That is why I'm trying to use these techniques here. Just to give you an overview of what these neurons are represented in the spinal cord, in the living spinal cord of a rat, but this is just very small information. Recording neurons is not an easy task, and especially from the brain, we need to use invasive methods to decode the motor intention when we are interested in using ensemble of neurons as information, because electroencephalogram, as mentioned in the first presentation, could be used, but it's little connected to the motor intention specifically. And when we decode the information of the neurons from the brain, we can get more insightful information on the motor behavior. But to do this, we need to insert electrodes into the brain tissue and record the local field potentials. And then, using spike sorting methods, we can extract the information from brain neurons. But from the spinal cord, the task is a little bit less challenging, because we have one specific characteristic of the motor system, that is one motor neuron innervates, let's say, hundreds and thousands of muscle fibers, but this unity, the so-called motor unity, will produce or will give us the opportunity to decode the spiking activity of these neurons, because when one motor neuron discharges one action potential at the spinal cord, unless of propagation delay, we have one action potential in those muscle fibers innervated by this motor neuron. So this synapses is 100% effective in, let's say, normal situations or in non-pathological conditions. But using, for example, intramuscular electromyogram or surface electromyogram, we can open a window into this nervous system and, let's say, see this information from these motor neurons in the periphery, in the muscle. And this is one example of a recording in one of my classes, one tutorial class that I typically teach in my grad course on motor physiology for biomedical engineers and mathematicians and computer engineers. I don't see if you can, I don't know if you can hear in the chat room, but those spikes in the beginning of the recording are action potentials from neurons that are discharging at the spinal cord of a human subject, and minimally invasive, with a minimally invasive technique, we can record this activity using a single channel, using a single pair of electrodes inserted into the muscle. This is the so-called intramuscular EMG. But when we use recordings from the surface of the muscle or the skin on top of the muscle, we can get electropotentials traveling on the tissue, on the muscle tissue and the skin, and the information in these neurons, in these electrodes, are quite, let's say, spread over this spatial domain. So we have a very low spatial resolution using surface electrodes. It's similar to the electroencephalogram with a very high temporal resolution, but with a very low spatial resolution. But when we increase the number of electrodes, and these pictures here are showing the increasing number of electrodes placed or positioned on the skin, above, on top of the muscle. When we increase the number of electrodes recording these electromyogram signals, we can increase the possibility of identifying the activity of neurons or motor neurons from surface signals, because we can employ some kind of blind source separation algorithm, and then we can identify the sources of these electrical fields propagating on muscle surface. And I will enter the methodological part of my presentation, and I will show you some a sort of classical method for this problem. And one method is based on convoluted blind source separation, where we can record EMG from, let's say, 64 or 128 electrodes. Typically, these are the number of electrodes in the current systems. And then we can apply this pipeline of decomposition, studying the matrix to make the problem instantaneous, and then we can widen to make the signals uncorrelated in the spatial domain, and then we can use some kind of fixed point algorithm, for example, fast ICA, to identify the sources of these signals at the surface of the muscle. And in this case, we are not trying to maximize the non-Gaussianity, for example, but we are trying to maximize the sparseness of the sources. That is a related thing, because these sources are spiking and not continuous in a time series. Just to give you an example, the image is very bad here, but I think that you can see the electrode placed on top of this hand muscle. But this is the signal. These are the signals obtained after the composition step. And during a steady contraction, a steady force generation, we can detect or decompose tenths of motor neurons, tenths of motor neuron activities, and then we can associate or correlate these activities with the force. I'll show the applications later. This is just another example where we use a triangular shaped force profile, and where the force is increased and then decreased. And these are the signals from the neurons on top. And in the bottom part of that image, we have the instantaneous firing rate, the instantaneous discharge of action potentials estimated from these spike trains. And using this information from a physiological point of view, we can access motor unit recruitment and rate coding. There are two modes of force control mechanisms that our motor system use during motor tasks. And so we can extract these strategies from this kind of approach. And in our lab, recently, we are trying to solve this decomposition problem. A student of mine and co-supervised by Professor Leonardo is Marcelo Romano. We are trying to use sparse autoencoders to solve this problem of identifying these sparse sources from high-density EMG, and then we use, for example, some regularity functions to maximize these sparseness and analyze the correlation between different sources, because in this case we cannot detect the similar or same motor unit. In this case it's possible, but we are trying to avoid this duplicate directly into this algorithm. And the advantage of this method is that it is not iterative. So we train this model and we put all the signals from the high-density grids, and all the sources are extracted simultaneously. And that is one advantage of this method, among others that we can discuss later. And this is a toy example. We're using a synthetic high-density EMG signal that we can generate using a biophysical model of the muscle fibers and a model of the spinal cord neurons. And in this case, before the clustering part of at the final part, at the end part of the algorithm, of the pipeline processing, we have a source that is approximately a spike train, but we have some noise, very low level noise, and then after clustering, we can identify the time instance of activation of this motor unit. And the original source, since we are using synthetic signals, we can compare with our original signal. We can check the similarity between the estimated source and the original source, and our algorithm, as compared to with the classical blind source separation algorithm, produce the same number of sources decomposed from these signals, but with a higher accuracy that is estimated by this rate of agreement between the spike times of these two neurons. So in the final part of my talk, I'm going to show you some examples, and the first one is more, let's say, physiological, and then a more technological. This study was conducted by my former PhD student that is now a professor in our school. And we employ a vibrotactile simulation to see what happens in the force fluctuation, and we observe a decrease in force fluctuations. But from a neurophysiological point of view, we employ high-density EMG decomposed by the fast ICA method, and then we use this information from the motor neurons to infer on the mechanisms behind the reduction of the force variability caused by the vibration. And we observe that the neural drive for the muscle that is estimated by this smooth and cumulative spike train that is calculated from the spike trains of these neurons are reduced without a reduction in the variability of the spike times. So the decrease in force variability is not caused by the reduction in variability of the discharge of these neurons, but in the reduction in the fluctuation, the common fluctuations of populations of neurons, they are driven the muscle fibers. And the last example is a technological advancement that we are trying to make in our lab. We are designing a neuroprosthesis for controlling a hand, fingers of a hand, bionic hand, and this system employed 128 channels, and we try to estimate the neural drive in different motor tasks. And in this case, we are trying to extract the motor unit activity from high-density EMG and then estimate the neural drive for at least 1 degree of freedom. For example, finger flexion or extension, and or power grip or pinching grip. In this case, we are trying to improve our method, but at this moment, we have only 1 degree of freedom to show. The spiking activity was decomposed using the fast ICA algorithm employed directly into the platform, directly into the hardware of our system. And then we smoothed these spiking signals, and then we use a phase information to classify those motor units that are discharging in the flexion phase or the extension phase of the movement. And these two clusters were used to group motor units that are in these two groups. And then we use these informations from neurons of cluster 1 and cluster 2 to estimate the single degree of freedom signal correlated to the motor signal or motor task. These are a summary this is a summary of the results. We decomposed more than 2,500 motor units in this test from 5 subjects, and we classified 12 motor units in cluster 1, 23 in cluster 2, and we got some large cross-correlation between the mechanical signal, the biomechanical signal, and the neural drive estimated from these neurons with a very small lag that is caused by the propagation delay and the electromechanical delay in the activation of the muscle fibers. Well, we have a lot of challenges. For example, we are trying to move in a more multivariable, let's say, problem, trying to solve multi-degree of freedom problem using motor unit activities, and employing some kind of adaptive method to update the mixture matrix of the method to, for example, make the system more robust to changes in muscle contraction, fatigue, sweating, and other kind of variations that we have during movement, and then reduce the training time of these algorithms to employ more real-time methods in the prosthetic system. And in this case, we can use, for example, digital twins to train these methods. I'd like to thank the funding agencies, and thank you for the attention.